So this question has come up from time to time. Basically, folks ask what editor I'm using. They see me using this editor, and they're like, "Oh, they think it's a Chrome extension." No, it's not a Chrome extension. Okay, it's something called Cloud9. So Cloud9 is essentially a IDE editor within a browser that's provided by AWS. And I'm going to show you a demo of Cloud9 and kind of explain why I kind of using that as my primary editor of choice. Now, the editor, it's a very personal decision. So this is just what works for me. It might not work for others, and that's totally fine. I just kind of explain why I eventually kind of am using Cloud9, as well as kind of provide a demo and kind of just like a getting started guide with Cloud9 here. Okay, and I'm sure at some point my editor is going to change again. I've used a bunch: Vim, Sublime, Atom, RubyMine, a bunch of all these editors and all that. And these things are again very personal and they're going to change over time. But I actually want to answer this question and kind of show you a Cloud9 demo. So to get to Cloud9, I have a shortcut icon here, but you can also click on services, or you can type one for Cloud9 here, I guess. Okay, and then you click on Cloud9. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna create a new environment. So click on that. I'm gonna call it demo. Okay, and then it says right here, right, just the description you want one. I don't really need one. Demo. I'm gonna actually use a decent sized instance here. Okay, because I use it as my primary means of development. You can use, if you're just trying out, you just maybe use a T2 micro. Because okay, so the way Cloud9 works is it actually spins up an EC2 instance. Okay, and then it basically installs some software in that instance in order to provide you with the editor in a browser. Okay, so it's essentially a server. You're running a server, so you're gonna get charged money for the EC2 instance. Okay, and this is a deterrent for folks, and I totally understand why it costs money to run the server. If you're running a T2 micro, it's not so bad. It's like $5 a month or something. M5 large is gonna be a little more expensive. All right, so you want to kind of figure out what's the kind of your budgeting, your means there. I do like to use basically a large instance because I like the extra RAM. I just like the extra CPU and the extra additional speed and everything. And then down here you can select which platform or OS you want to use. So Amazon's going to recommend Amazon stuff. Amazon Linux 2 is based on Red Hat and CentOS. So essentially you're going to have like commands like yum install. Amazon Linux 1 is no longer recommended, so I won't use that. And then Ubuntu, if that's your thing. And Ubuntu, then you have apt-get and app kind of install. This is kind of neat cost savings here. So like I mentioned, essentially how Cloud9 works is it launches an EC2 instance, okay? Well, that EC2 instance, when it's not in use, it can actually automatically shut down. They actually have a script that pulls whether or not there's activity, whether or not you're basically essentially typing and actually making changes in the editor. And it will shut down the instance after 30 minutes or an hour, 4 hours a day, after a week, or never here. Okay, so it's in your best interest to actually have this 30 minutes, so things shut down, and then guess what? You're gonna save some money. Now, when you open up the editor, you're gonna have to wait for like a minute or two for the instance to spin back up, but then you save some money. So this is what that setting is about, and actually kind of like it there. There's advanced network settings here, but I'm just using the default VPC, okay, and any AZ, that's fine. Okay, so I'm going to click the next step now. Now it's just the review step, and then I'm just going to go ahead and click create environment. So that's going to kind of go about and start creating an environment. Now, when you create the Cloud9 environment, what it is it actually just spins up a CloudFormation stack underneath the hood. Right here, I'm just going to CloudFormation here. It says create in progress AWS Cloud9 demo, because that's the name of the basically instance or the Cloud9 machine I'm creating. And if you click on this and you click on resources, you're going to see, oh, it's creating a security group and instance. Okay, so the instance, let's just click on it. You can see it's on the EC2 console right here, and it's starting to run. So basically it's initializing the instance here. So it's exactly the instance that I kind of mentioned, M5 large in my case here. Okay, so basically you manage it like you manage an EC2 instance. So you actually have access to it and everything too. Okay, if you want to kind of directly access it though, I usually just use the Cloud9. So here, it actually started up already. So Cloud9 started up here. You can see it says welcome Cloud9. There's some starter instructions here. I'm just going to give a brief overview of kind of how you can kind of configure things. But basically you have like some things already kind of working already. So right off the bat, you already have like a working version of Python, you have a working version of Ruby and everything. So you already have some nice development tools. You have like a GCC compiler. Everything's kind of already done, at least a common base. You probably want to customize it further to your heart's content and everything, right? Just like every personal laptop. This essentially, the Cloud9 is kind of like my personal laptop. And the reason, I should cover the reason why I use Cloud9 nowadays. And again, I think this will eventually change one day. But essentially for speed and convenience, okay? For speed, internet speed makes a vast difference, particularly when you're doing things like in the DevOps side, like Docker, like you're pulling images and you're pushing images to the registry. That's pretty slow on typically home internet connection. If you're on the go and you're using like a Wi-Fi device or a MiFi device, it's gonna be even slower on a cell phone network. So it's just a pain. But the cool thing is when you're using Cloud9 here, you're actually using the internet speed of the EC2 instance on within the AWS data center. So that's gonna be blazing fast. So how fast of a difference? Let's actually check. So here's a command to check whether or not the internet speed from a terminal. So I'm gonna run that right there. So it's gonna do a test. Okay, and I'm gonna also run it from kind of actually my home network right here. Okay, so this is not Cloud9, this is a regular terminal. I'm gonna kind of do it like that. And this is Cloud9 running. So Cloud9 speed is 1.5 gigabyte down. And more importantly, 1.2 gigabyte up. Like that Docker push is gonna be blazing fast. Okay, any zip files upload into S3, no problem whatsoever. Okay, now as you can see, my internet curl test on my on my laptop here through basically regular internet, not off the EC2 bandwidth, is still running that test. Okay, so that's eventually gonna finish. It's gonna report some speeds, but it's not gonna be as fast as his Cloud9 speed. So that's like the biggest reason probably for me using Cloud9. Just that internet speed makes a big difference. All I need is a good enough connection to connect to Cloud9, and from there, all the other work I do, it's actually very, very, very quick. Of course, there's a lot of disadvantages with Cloud9 too, right? You have to use this editor that they have, and then sometimes the editor is a little finicky. Okay, so you just have to refresh. Okay, so that's not the best thing, and that's gonna annoy some people too much, and I totally get it. All right, it actually took me a while to get used to Cloud9. I actually hated it for like a week or so, but now I'm pretty used to it. I'm fine with it. Okay, but look at the difference in internet speed test here. Like download 37, upload 10. Okay, versus basically you're looking at like 100x there of a difference. So that's a pretty vast difference there. Okay, let's show you how to configure a couple things. So you can go Cloud9 preferences, and a lot of people, because it's a personal editor, they want to know how to configure themes. So you can change the dark theme here. Oh, everything's dark now. Or you can just go like the regular theme right here. Okay, so that's how you can configure themes and stuff. Project settings are kind of useful too. Save. So here's soft tabs. I like to use 2 tabs because I usually do Ruby development. I just like 2 tabs better, but it depends on what language you're programming. I do like on-save strip white spaces, so that's something I usually configure too. Okay, let's see what else is kind of useful here. The editor right here. I was just looking at that. EC2 instance. That's actually pretty important. So this is where you can actually change that setting when we launch the Cloud9 machine. You could change it to an hour if you're like, okay, I don't want to wait the 2 minutes for the EC2 instance to spin up. I want to, so don't shut off my machine for a whole hour or whatever or 4 hours or even never, I guess, if you're okay with that. This is actually, let's see what else is a kind of a good setting here under code editor. We got that. Number of files to search. So when you kind of search here, you can click right search and search for files in folder. It limits the number of files to search for performance reasons, but you can actually make this all the way to 1,000 to search just more files. Okay, there's just some quirks you have to learn with every editor, and Cloud9 definitely has its own quirks. Okay, so but look, you get code formatters kind of for free in most languages right here. Hopefully one day they add Ruby support, but these are all the other languages that support so far. Let's see, user settings in the terminal here. This actually is pretty important too. So terminal, scroll back. What happens is Cloud9 essentially kind of, actually they run this in a TMUX session, but anyway, so the scroll back here, it's only defaults to 1,000 lines. If you're running like a command that spits out lots of output, sometimes it's gonna get truncated. So you might want to increase this more. There is a limit, I think it's like 20,000 or something, but eventually you can increase this if you want, and you can change fonts and everything here, so you could customize the theme even more so. Okay, let's see what else is kind of important here. AWS settings. So this is credentials. Okay, so this is kind of neat feature of AWS Cloud9. So the credentials actually are temporary. Okay, so what that means is with AWS EC2 instance, there's something called an instance profile. So the instance profile is basically the IAM credentials that's associated with the instance. Okay, IAM. Okay, the role. Okay, but so basically what it does is it's basically pulling credentials that's associated with the IMA role that you assign to the instance here. There's none assigned, but then it's going to be able to basically be able to give you access to AWS resources with temporary credentials that always get rotated, so you don't have to worry about rotation. Now, when it's kind of a personal machine, it actually gets a little bit annoying. So sometimes people like to turn this off and they just manage the credentials themselves and just configure your .aws file or your home folder .aws/config and .aws/credentials, or you just run AWS configure. And actually, the AWS CLI is also pre-installed, of course. Okay, so that's pretty nice. A couple things are kind of working here. You can change the key bindings, you can change the themes, like I kind of mentioned. But that's kind of the whirlwind tool of like Cloud9 and kind of how it all works and everything. And this README, it's just right there. And again, the main reason I kind of use it is for speed and also convenience. Is all I need is a very actually weak internet signal, than to have pretty fast internet speed. All right. But again, it does come with a cost. It comes with the cost of the EC2 instance. And I should mention, this is actually important. It comes with the cost of storage too, okay? So you have to pay for whatever this instance costs when it's running, okay? But you also have to pay for the storage. And by default, there's only a 10 gigabyte volume size, and that's way too small. Like you're gonna run out of space relatively quickly. DF-H here. You can see the space. There's only 2.1 gigs available right here. So actually, what you want to do is you want to click on this volume, you want to resize it, and I just kind of quickly show you how you would do that action. Then you go, I guess I have to select the volume here, and then I can go modify volume, and then you can add more sizes. Now, when you modify volumes, you can only go up, you can't go down, okay? And guess what? The EBS volume will cost you money regardless of whether or not the EC2 instance is running. This is usually, for 10 gigabytes currently, it's about $5 a month. So 20 gigabytes is about $10 a month, and 50 gigabytes is $25 a month. So this can add up too, okay? You can actually, I guess, change it to a magnetic standard, and that's a little bit cheaper, okay? So, but then slower, right? So there's some trade-offs there. So yeah, the budget is definitely something to consider whether or not you kind of want to do this. But that is the editor that I currently use today. It will probably change over time, just like it always does. But then that's the editor that I use, and that answers that question, and that actually explains some of the reasoning behind why I'm using Cloud9 nowadays as my primary editor. Okay, hopefully that helped. Cheers.